What's going on, everyone? So from the very beginning of the Matthews family has been very front and center, and looked like they were kind of the main focus. Now, each character has kind of gone on to do their own thing. Julie, in particular, and Tabitha are kind of more now front and center than they've ever been. Season one kind of was more Jim with him building the tower and stuff. Ethan has kind of always been kind of just trickled in throughout. But another Matthew family member that keeps being brought up, and I really feel like there's going to be more to the story and there's going to be more significance to the story, is Thomas, right? Now, obviously, Jim, we'll see what happens with Jim. Did he really die? Did he not die? If he does die, does he come back as like a force ghost, as like we saw with, like Tom and, even Jim has seen several with like Father Kotri and his wife and stuff, right? Like, does Jim kind of come back as this like other version of somebody else, right? Does he like help the children, right? I've talked about like maybe the phone call that Jim was getting. What if like that's his way of communicating with them? We're going to see, obviously there's a ton of stories to still unpack, a ton, with Tabitha and her now having the memories of the past and her being the reincarnated version, dating all the way back to the beginning of FROMVILLE. Also Julie, right? Like Julie now is a story walker. How far does the reincarnation go? How far does this or all the other characters, like all the other Matthew family members, are they all just kind of like through happenstance, or do each one have a significance, or each one kind of a reincarnated version of somebody else that maybe we're not even aware of, right? Ethan seems to have all the answers, right? Ethan seems to be the one that has all the knowledge and capabilities of understanding this place, and is the one that's constantly revealing and giving you little hits of information that become very important, very significant. But we'll see. I imagine there's going to be a lot to unpack. But I really do think that you saw from the beginning they made it a point of Thomas and their child dying. Okay, well, if they've always had this outline to the story, and in the moment it kind of feels insignificant, but they keep bringing it up in different ways and keep mentioning it in different ways. And yes, you could argue that in season 3, the recent like phone calls and stuff could kind of be the closure, could kind of be the end, right? Because Ethan, at the end they had like Ethan and Jim share that moment in the RV where they're just kind of like, like, yeah, you're right, Dad, it's not him type thing. And they just kind of move on and be done with it. But I feel like there should be a purpose to it. I feel like there should be some form of significance, right? Whether it's something major or something light. Obviously, we don't know what he looks like. I've seen people throw out, which I think this is a good moment to kind of explain this. Like, I've had a lot of people be like, what if, the boy in white is Thomas? It can't be, because the boy in white has been there from the beginning, or at least bare minimum as long as Victor's been there, which Thomas died like a year, I believe it was, prior to them going to FROMVILLE, right? And it kind of became this disaster and this mess, right? Or maybe it was 2 years, something like that. It was recent. It wasn't like, 10 years ago, right? So it's something where clearly it keeps being brought up. It keeps being this story. It's not a character that we're aware of, right? Like, again, how far does the reincarnation element go to it, right? Did Thomas die because... So, like, you look at Miranda, right, and Henry. Okay, well, if Tabitha is supposed to be, reincarnated version of Miranda, maybe there are certain requirements or limitations that can happen, right? Maybe you're supposed to have, like, that husband, right? Because, like, Miranda had Henry, right? Tabitha has Jim. Miranda had a son, Victor. Tabitha has a son in Ethan. Miranda had a daughter in Eloise. Tabitha has a daughter in Julie, right? So, again, is Julie the reincarnated version of Eloise? Was Eloise able to story walk, right? Like, there's a lot of kind of these tie-ins that they could tie it to any way that they really want, really. I don't know how kind of interwebbed they're going to make it, how much they're going to tie into it. But I think it would make sense to have Thomas play a more intricate role at some point. I'm not saying that you need to have like him in this movie or in this show regularly, right? Not even as much as the boy in white. But I'd like to see if maybe Thomas really does have a piece of information, right? Or Thomas really does have some details or something, right? Like I understand that Thomas was a child, like he was a baby, right? But we've seen FROMVILLE and even the boy in white age and evolve. So what if Thomas was? Like, that could be your explanation. That could be your kind of tie-in, right? Because previously, it wouldn't have made sense, right? Previously, it's like, well, you have a baby or toddler, right? Like, that die. Like, he's not going to be able to, like, show up and be like, hey, what's going on, right? Like, but now we've heard, Thomas's voice, or what's supposed to be Thomas's voice and stuff, and obviously Jim doesn't believe that it's him because, he has the memories and whatnot, right? But I do think that there is this potential to kind of explore where Thomas maybe helps, right? Maybe Thomas helps Jim find a way to get back to his body or something, right? Or be able to survive, or maybe there's a way to bring him back, or, or maybe Thomas helps Julie or Ethan at some point, right? Or maybe he helps her mother, right? Because Tabitha, you got to think, Tabitha has the memories now of not only losing her child, Thomas, but now the memory of losing the Ankui child, plus whatever, all the other kids, plus however many kids she had back then, which, based on the reincarnation track record, she probably had another kid, right? So it's very possible that she has this like kind of grief, or like extended grief. She already was having issues, right? And, was calling, having like trauma of like, oh, we need to go get Thomas. And, Jim's like, Thomas isn't here. Remember, he died, right? Type thing. So how does that impact her even further? And it would be nice to kind of maybe have like a closure moment to kind of help Tabitha, right? Like, maybe Tabitha's kind of spiraling a little bit, kind of, struggling with trying to overcome this, the loss of all these children that she's had. Right? I mean, that'd be tough for anybody. Can you only imagine, right? Like, and then on top of that, like, maybe she's kind of breaking, and this place is getting her or whatever, and then Thomas, it doesn't even have to be anything major. Just be something just simple, right? Or maybe even Thomas just communicates through Ethan. And, Ethan doesn't buy it and doesn't believe it at first, but then ultimately he does, right? I'm also curious to see if there's any, like, manipulation tactics by FROMVILLE now that Jim is dead, right? Like, do they kind of target Ethan to try to manipulate into believing it's his father or something? Right? Like, that could be kind of interesting in and of itself. But I don't know, it's just kind of a thought of, like, why do they keep bringing up Thomas? Why do they keep going this route if they're not going to go anywhere with it? Right? Like, they've constantly brought him up or had moments where, he's talked about and mentioned, and then they did the telephone thing and stuff. And again, I get that you could argue like that was the closure, right? But now Jim is dead, and it's like, I'm sure that's going to open up all kinds of can of worms for just the entire Matthews family. And, you have the boy in white in this place. And I guess the last little thing is like, would be like, oh, well, how would this place, how would Thomas be in that place? Because he died previous time. Well, all these people have connections. Like, that's the easiest place to explain and whatnot. But the problem is that, like, I feel like they're going to go nowhere with it. I feel like they're just going to kind of let it die down and be the end of it. But it's just, they keep mentioning it. So it's like, I feel like there should be something more to it. But anyway, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. That being said, If you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.